Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with intuitive healer and spiritual mentor, Whitney Abke. She has always known her purpose is to facilitate healing for others, whether with intuitive healing, Reiki, spiritual mentoring, tarot, or oracle readings, the Soulish podcast, workshops, or inspired content. Her intentions are to help every soul feel more connected, healed, and empowered. She has a great story, great message. Enjoy. Thanks for taking a minute out today.
Of course.
So before we get into your life here, as a healer, I want to know, how did you survive COVID? In your line of work, I'm curious how you got through it and how it's changed the way that you live and the way that you conduct your business now.
To be honest, I don't think COVID really changed much for me. I was kind of already doing digital services. And so I also really launched my spiritual services right around COVID. That's right around when I also launched my podcast. So a lot of it was already going to be digital, so not much changed for me. As far as, I guess, continuing to generate business or get business referrals, that has just been an ongoing thing. I moved as well in 2021 from San Jose to Denver, Colorado. So I kind of started anew, to be honest, and that actually shifted me from primarily digital services to in-person, intuitive energy healing, that kind of thing, and actually going to people's homes or wherever they felt comfortable, at coffee shop, or my home on occasion, and that's where I would perform intuitive healing or mentoring and all of that. So not much for me changed, just because I was already digital.
So I would imagine there would have to be an uptick with all of the self-revelations that everybody went through and all of the soul searching. Did you notice that maybe there's been more of a demand now than ever before?
For sure. I think a lot of us, because when you're in isolation, it causes you to reflect. I mean, you can't help it when there's silence and isolation and nothing really to distract you with, although I think we did a good job with getting distracted with Netflix and Hulu and whatever else. But I think it caused a lot of people to kind of self-reflect, and I know a lot of people pivoted with their purpose or what they were going to do, that they thought they were going to do. They ended up completely changing that. A lot of relationships ended. My 5-year relationship ended as well. It's just a lot of shifting, I think, for people kind of realizing what they ultimately want, or if something's out of alignment, it kind of came to light, I think, during the isolation period, for sure.
So I'm going to give you a challenge to kind of boil down exactly what you do for a living, and I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day. One of the kids looks up at you and says, "What do you do for a living?" How do you answer that?
I would say I help people heal and find freedom. If they were like, heal from what? I would say, well, do you ever have a bad day? Do you ever feel sad? Do you ever feel sad for a long time? Do you ever wish, you could have maybe more abilities to do things, do cool things, do fun things, but you feel like you can't or you're not good enough? I help people know that they are good enough and heal whatever it is that is making them think that they're not. Serve people can be probably put into many categories for kids. I would probably let them know I just basically help people. So no matter what that is, if that's serving food, if that's helping them, I just want to have a good heart for people, to help people always, and they should too. So that's basically what I would say. I've never really actually worked with kids. I've only worked with youth. So it's fun to think about that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So when you were in the third grade, what did you envision your life being at this point? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be like a pastor, basically from birth, because I grew up in a pastor's home. So I knew those terms, which are probably really Christian terms, serving people, helping people. But that's what I grew up with. So for me as a third grader, I immediately understood what that meant because I was surrounded by it and saturated in an environment where we're always thinking about helping people in whatever ways people need. So I wanted to do that. I didn't care what it looked like. I knew I loved to sing, and I just loved being a part of like any of our church events where we're giving out, especially anything with the homeless or anything with volunteering for the holidays. I loved that. So I would always be like first to sign up, even as a kid.
What you do is you have Reiki, you have oracle readings. There's a lot of things that you do. Talk to me a little bit about your childhood and how you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but kind of a little bit more about your childhood and how those specific seeds got into you that made you who you are today.
Wow. I think for me, what really did it was being in an environment that was very spiritual. Even though it was religious and it was Christian, we were very spiritual Christians growing up and all throughout my adulthood. And it wasn't until I went to seminary that I realized how not spiritual a lot of Christian denominations are. So I felt really grateful for that. But I really think when I started to see people get healed from diseases, cancer, we even had types of miracles where metal would dissolve out of people's bodies if they had any surgeries or anything, and like they would have whatever it was that metal plate was holding, it would be completely healed and baffled the doctors. So I just kind of grew up around this environment of anything is possible, and God can also speak to us or connect with us in multiple different types of ways. And for some people, one thing works for them. For others, it's a completely different modality or way of connecting. And so like people pray differently. Like that's one example. Some people pray and they're asking God for things. Other people pray and they declare what God is going to do in their life, right? Kind of more of a faith of what, I believe in what I cannot see, that it's already happened type of prayer. Other people ask/beg God to come through for them. So everyone has a different way in the way that they relate or believe God can connect with them, communicate, help them. And so I kind of learned that there was different modalities as I started to unbox my Christian upbringing, the beliefs, and kind of took a look at them. And some of them served me still and others didn't. And I started exploring different ideas, different modalities of service for people to connect with themselves, connect with God, and to connect with others. And I was really drawn to oracle cards, which was kind of my gateway into tarot, which I grew up in. Tarot cards were very evil, thought of as like kind of what a witch or a Satanist does only. Psychics are bad. I kind of grew up with that belief and mentality. And I soon realized that it's the intention that I use, the tools that I use, whether it's Reiki, oracle cards, tarot, even cardology, which is a new divination tool that originated from the Magi. All of those tools are just meant to, including like astrology or human design, are meant to help us connect. Regardless of if it speaks to somebody or not, that's up to the individual based off of their upbringing, their conditioning, their programming, and what they're choosing to believe. But I really wanted to start to accumulate tools on my tool belt because I realized I can't serve a bunch of people only using one thing. I would only be able to serve the people that align or feel comfortable with this type of modality. So I've kind of delved into a bunch of different things trying to figure it out because ultimately I just have a passion to help people heal trauma, heal limiting beliefs, heal unworthiness, heal shame, guilt, anything that is causing them to feel unworthy, not enough, or distanced from God in any way. That was something that growing up I didn't agree with. Even as a kid, I didn't like the idea that there was something I could do that could separate me from the love of God, because a lot of the songs we sang and even scripture would say nothing can separate you from the love of God. But when we brought it down to what we do in Christianity and the religion, the fundamentalism of religion, that was not true. It was not what we were taught, necessarily, although we would sing about it. And so it's very contradictory. And I've kind of always had a passion to help people heal that concept around disconnection. I believe that we're truly never disconnected. So in all of the healing modalities that I use, all of them point in that direction of you can connect within yourself. You can connect with God, source, spirit, universe within yourself. You're designed to connect, not to be disconnected. And that we're all connected as well between each other because we have one thing that connects us all, and that is spirit. So that's a little bit. Hopefully that answers your question thoroughly.
It does, absolutely, yeah. And for you have to get inspiration. And I'm curious, in your life, who's been a role model or a hero for you?
Ooh, so many people. So growing up as a Christian woman and really wanting to do ministry, Joyce Meyer actually was somebody that I really looked up to. She was kind of the only woman that we saw on TV growing up, being a woman and being a pastor, although I don't think she was allowed to even call herself a pastor, but that's what she was. But she was able to be a speaker, a Christian speaker, and inspire millions of people. And I really wanted to do something like that. I didn't know what that would look like for me, but I definitely wanted to do something like that that has impact and influence in a positive way on a lot of people. And moving into spirituality, I started to very slowly discover different people like Eckhart Tolle, Michael Singer, even in business and entrepreneurship and also spirituality, Tony Robbins, even Oprah Winfrey. She kind of started the Soul Sundays, and I realized just how spiritual she was, and the different, even talking about different types of meditation. Gosh, I'm trying to think. I love Gabby Bernstein as well. She's amazing, has an amazing story. There's so many. It's hard to even go into all of them. But yeah, I really appreciate the people that have good hearts. They're in it for people. And I feel like usually I gravitate towards people like that.
So speaking of gravitating towards people like that, if you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now, one person, who would it be?
Oh, that's so hard. I would maybe even say Ram Dass. That would be amazing. He would be amazing to meet in person.
Yeah.
But it's hard. I could easily say Oprah Winfrey.
Sure.
Oprah.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'll meet her one day anyway, so it's not a huge wish. But if I could bring anyone back or anything like that, it would be Ram Dass. Is just, his quotes are amazing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Oprah's usually the top on that list. So talk to me a little bit about, the one thing about our life is we have all of these avenues that we go down and things that we do. If you have a dream tonight, you run into your younger version, say in your 20s, and you can give that version a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained throughout your life up to this point. What would you tell your young version?
That is so good. That's a great question. I would say no matter what you do, your life means something. I think in my 20s, I really suffered with the idea that I was failing at my purpose, failing in life in general. And if I could say anything to my 20-year-old self, it would be, it doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter if you fail or you work a million different jobs in order to make ends meet and not living your dream, your life still means something, and it will always mean something.
What are you the proudest of at this point in your life with everything that you've done and accomplished? What is it that brings you the most pride?
Man, that's so hard. I could say totally so many things because I'm so, I have so much gratitude.
Yeah.
This is kind of a hard story, but it's maybe one of the proudest moments I've ever had because it's just why I do what I do. But I was early on in Christian ministry school, seminary, and I was working a youth camp, and I always just asked for God to show me or make someone really visible to me that needed love, that needed God's love, that needed something, from God. I didn't want any youth that came to this youth camp to be invisible. And I felt so invisible growing up so many times, and I knew what that felt like, and I didn't want anyone to come here and feel that way. But it was very hard because it's 1,400 students, youth, in one building. But I remember it was during the service, and we had a bunch of kids coming up to the front, and I was working the front and just helping out if we were asked to help out in any way, whether it was, praying for kids or things like that. And I saw this girl, and she was crying, but it wasn't in the way that it's like she's being touched by God or, she's being moved in some way. She's healing. It was like this devastation. And I knew what that felt like. I immediately connected with it and knew that, man, I felt that way before. I felt missed. And we had just gone through and tried to lay hands on every kid that came up. And that was the look on her face and the tears rolling down her cheeks that said, I wasn't touched. I wasn't acknowledged. I was missed somehow. So I walked across the stage, actually, which we weren't supposed to do, but I just tried to crouch down and be as invisible as I could be in that moment. And I just made my way to her. She was kind of on the opposite side of the room. And I just said, did anyone pray for you? And she just shook her head no and said it. So I grabbed her hand and said, okay, follow me. And so I led her to the side of the room, and I just grabbed her into a huge hug. And she, I think, was 12 or 13. And I found out later because she was crying from her gut. She was just like, no one cries like that hasn't experienced pain, suffering, trauma. And so I just asked her once she kind of calmed down, what happened? And she said, I've watched my dad, rape my sister, my 9-year-old sister. I've watched him now for a while rape her. And he always would look at me and say, I'm next. And then all the kids at school would start to call me slut and hoe and whore and all the words, right, that I probably shouldn't even mention. But she said, I just feel like God doesn't love me because there is no protection. There is no love. Even my dad doesn't love me. And so I, of course, had to report the things that she had experienced. We did go, the proper avenues and channels and all of that. But in that moment, I just told her what she needed to hear, that it doesn't matter what your dad has done, what he has said to you. It doesn't matter what the kids at school say to you. That is not true. What is true is that you are loved and you are worthy of being loved. And I think in that moment, to be honest, I saw so much of myself, although I had never experienced any of the things that she experienced. I had and have a very loving, protective father, but that, I think lit a fire that I thought I already had, but it made it huge. A huge fire and passion to make sure no one is ever missed. Because, there were so many needs in that room, so many kids that need the love of God or need connection, need to be acknowledged, need to not be invisible, but we missed one, and for me that was like a fail. We missed one and she needed it. She really needed it. And so I just kind of realized as I've kind of moved away from Christianity and Christian ministry, I've moved more into spirituality and spiritual services and that type of thing, including business services. I never want anyone to feel that same way. No matter what their journey or experiences in life have been up until this point, I want to see people for who they are, and I want to help people see who they are. And that's different for everyone. It's not easy to do, but if I can help humanity heal in any way, it's for them to know what they are and who they are. And if I can speak that truth to people in any way, shape, or form, I will. I'm super passionate about it.
So speaking of who you are, everyone has a perception of you out there, your family, your friends, your clients, but you're the one that's living your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
That's so good. You ask amazing questions.
Thank you.
My perception of myself is a seeker, is somebody who is always seeking truth, authenticity, love within myself first. And I've noticed as I've, like everyone else, have wanted, a wonderful relationship and partnership with someone, or want to be successful in business and what I do, and have all the money in order to live a good life and help people in big ways and give a lot of money. I've always had a passion to serve. I think who I am and my perception is that I'm just somebody who is a seeker and really wants to live out the fact that my life has meaning. I want that meaning to be impactful and influential. And as far as I feel like my journey has led me, I feel like that's been the one string of pursuit, whether I've been in the corporate sector or nonprofit or on my own, creating my own program or course or even business. I've kind of always come from that place of wanting to help people in whatever way I can. So I think my perception of myself is that a seeker, someone with a heart for people and also wanting to live that life of meaning and actually experience that. Instead of just having it be conceptual, I want it to be my reality.
This has been wonderful, Whitney. If anybody wants to learn more about you and your services and what you can offer, where's the best place on the web for them to go?
WhitneyAbke.com. That's where all of it is. So if they're looking for business services, basically support in launching their own business or maybe program or course, they can go there. If you're looking for spiritual services, I do one-on-one as well as have a I Am Healed program that I love. That is amazing and really helps people integrate and embody that healing over time. So that's where everything's at, including the Soulish podcast, which is a podcast that I also have, and have amazing speakers, guests on that are thought leaders, truth seekers, and practitioners alike. And so that's really cool. So WhitneyAbke.com.
Wonderful. Whitney, thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time and for the opportunity. Thank you. Thanks
for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, and music from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube or Spotify. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.